Welcome to QXA, the podcast where we answer your biggest questions about trucks, SUVs, off-roading, safety, and everything in between. This show is brought to you by Off-RoadX, owner right here, Peter Lindsay. He's going to dive deep into answering these questions and kind of giving us a little backstory about pretty much anything we have to offer. Over here we have Sean, who's also an enthusiast like myself. He's actually helping you with turning the wrenches and kind of getting nit and gritty, right?
Yeah.
Getting down and dirty. So
Before we get to that, that's Spenser. He's the good-looking one out of the group, but he's as curious as he is good-looking. So he's going to help lead us through or navigate us through this podcast as he asks the questions that all of you want to know the answers to. And so he's going to lead us. And yeah, Sean is a good friend of mine, and he basically volunteered to come help us with Off-RoadX for a while, and it's turned into a pretty long, drawn-out
brave soul
relationship here.
Freaking awesome.
So, but he's pretty knowledgeable when it comes to turning a wrench, and then with off-roading and stuff like that. He's just a good guy to have around, and we'll see what kind of answers he has. He's a big Toyota guy. And remember in the last episode,
Yeah, we picked Jeep.
I picked Jeep.
Oh.
I don't know if you listened to the last one,
I did not.
but you probably hate me now.
You picked Jeep or Bronco, or is that the same thing?
I picked Jeep over Toyota because it was Jeep or Toyota.
That's right.
And I picked Jeep. But I picked Jeep because it's more modular than a Toyota. And
Yeah, I picked Jeep because they do the rubber duck thing. That's all I know.
Yeah.
I'm an enthusiast.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the intro here, but let's buckle up and let's get into it. This is QXA. So typically we start off with some fan questions to give Pete some feedback here. First one we're going to have is, what's the best way to recover a stuck vehicle?
well, that's a loaded question, I think. There's a ton of different ways.
If I'm stuck in the mud.
If you're stuck in the mud, I would go to a winch if you're stuck in the mud. I mean, it depends on how deep the mud is too. Like you could use traction boards or you could use a recovery rope. But with a mud, typically the vehicle is stuck or it gets sucked down in. There's actually a suction that can be created by the mud.
Okay.
And so having that slow tension, strong pull is usually the best way to get somebody stuck from the mud. If you go to yank them out and that suction doesn't break, something else is going to break.
Yeah. So always, tie off to your bumper first.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Just the flimsiest part. Usually the license plate is a good place to start.
The more flexible, the better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Sean and I just did a mud recovery recently, so Sean can talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, that was actually pretty cool. That was at that church.
Yeah.
That guy was stuck in the mud, and would he have a little Honda Accord or something? So we ended up, it got a little tricky. We tried to pull him out straight, and then we got a little fancy with it. We can get into that a little bit further because I think we're going to talk about some different ways to recover the guys, but we kind of pulled it at an angle, so we can talk a little more about that later.
Yeah, but that was muddy. That was
very muddy.
Yeah, it was to the point where we were sinking down. And what had happened was the customer or the individual had gone in when it was frozen and thought, oh, this will be fine. I was able to drive right to this spot. Well, it heated up to 50, 60 degrees, and that just turned to soup.
Yeah.
And so he was buried, basically.
Welcome to Colorado, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
He parked where he shouldn't have, so.
It happens.
Yeah.
So in that situation, are recovery straps or kinetic ropes better for that situation you guys ran into?
In that situation,
Which was, just to give an idea, this was a newly excavated parking lot / kind of flat land, right? From my
Yes.
understanding. Pretty flat, guy a couple hundred yards away from concrete. Pure mud. So
yeah, I would use a recovery rope over anything static, so like a chain or a static rope. The recovery rope, even though that was a mud situation, the recovery rope has some give to it. So if you're cautious with it and you use it properly, you're not going to run into a scenario where you yank somebody's bumper off or something like that. When you're using a kinetic rope to recover people, if you do it gently in the mud, it'll work out. It'll be fine. You just got to be cautious about how much load you're putting on that vehicle. Also, people think with recovery ropes that, just the harder you hit it, the more energy you're going to get out of it. That's not true. There is actually some math behind it, and you don't want to hit it as hard as you can possibly hit it.
Okay.
If your vehicle weighs a certain amount You want a rope that is the right diameter and the right length. And if the vehicle that you're recovering is a certain weight, there's a lot of things that go into it.
Man.
But
the stretch helps, right?
Yeah.
The stretch helps?
It does.
Yeah. Okay.
So it creates kinetic energy, turns potential energy into kinetic energy for you.
Oh, so it's like springboarding back and helping that way naturally?
Yeah. And instead of being recovered and you get this jolt, this massive hit on your rig and the individual's rig or the customer's rig, you get this kind of gentle pull with it if you use it properly.
Yeah.
Well, so would you say that's like a must-have for something to have as far as a recovery tool or asset on your vehicle when you go out, or what?
In any strap is important to have, but the kinetic rope is just the synthetic, the new technology. It adds so much more. Peter can add to this a little bit, but any strap helps. Anything in your bag is going to help you get out, but the kinetic rope is amazing.
Yeah, you just have a lot. It's a lot of money for a kinetic rope, a good kinetic rope, and that you should buy a good kinetic rope. It's not one of these things that you should go to Amazon like we talked about in a previous episode.
So this ain't a budgetary thing you should skip on.
Yeah, you should stick with the name brand. Okay. And we use Factor 55 products. That's the brand that we go with. Everything they do, they've tested to breaking strength. They've just absolutely abused. And then they tell you exactly like how they did it and what's the limit of their strap, whereas some other brands don't do that. So you can go with other good name brands, but you definitely want to stay away from the Amazon special with that.
So for your off-road rig, kinetic rope, if you can get up and upgrade to a winch, do that, right? Because if you're by yourself, no friends, you kind of have to have it. You know, kinetic ropes don't do much to trees. So good feedback there. Do I need a winch, or can I get by without one actually?
So if you're wheeling a lot by yourself, I do recommend a winch. Here's the thing about a winch. Winches are expensive, no doubt about it. The actual cost of the winch is pretty expensive, and then installation, if you're not installing it yourself, is pretty expensive. And then, you know, down the road when you replace like the line for it, or if you get advanced fair leads or hooks or anything like that, it just all adds up, right? It can get pretty expensive. Like the rigs that we have, they're Warren Platinum 12S winches that are like $2,800, and then we've got Factor 55 ultra hooks and all kinds of crazy recovery gear for them. I bet you our setups, and I don't know this off the top of my head, but they're probably approaching $4,000 or $5,000 for how we've set up our winches, because everything's custom made and we've tucked them into the vehicles real well. Sean's built a lot of the stuff that had to do
all the housing for it.
Yeah, for the Bronco especially, and so they can get super expensive. You can do it fairly inexpensively. Like you can go down to like the $700 or $800 winch and just mount it to your bumper if your bumper can handle it, if your bumper's prepared for that. But if you're wheeling by yourself, I recommend definitely doing a winch. And if you can afford it, get a winch. Here's the other thing about a winch. I removed a bunch of trees from my property with a winch that if I would have paid somebody else to do it, I would have spent like $1,000 or $2,000.
So you're getting your money out of it on yard work.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a bonus here.
Yeah. So if you
landscaping duty.
Hey everybody, sorry to interrupt this awesome podcast, but I made a mistake during the recording of this podcast where I touched my watch and it cut the one camera. So unfortunately, we do no longer have a camera for the remainder of this video for both Sean and me. However, Sean's microphone was hooked up to something separate, so his microphone is loud and clear, and my microphone also got cut off, but we've got Spenser and his microphone working perfectly too. So there's a little bit of editing going on here in the background as I'm editing this video. I'm inserting this so you guys know what's going on. And to punish myself, there will be some incriminating photos put up while I'm talking for the rest of the podcast. So keep watching. Thanks. If you can think of other uses for it, it quickly can pay itself back to you. Now, we're an off-road company. We go out and do recoveries. Our setup is stupid. You don't need to go that
it's kind of overkill for your just everyday off-road rig that you're doing on the weekend kind of thing. Yeah, I got you.
But Sean, you know, he can attest to building like the Broncos setup was.
Yeah, it's very custom. It's amazing, but not every rig's going to have that. So like we built a custom skid plate with the fair lead coming out at an angle. it looks sweet. It's very nice, but you can't do that on every vehicle unless you bring it here. So bring it here. You bring it here. We'll build it for you. Yeah, yeah, bring it in.
All right. So summarize that up. What would be the safest techniques to recover vehicles? How would you encompass that?
Yeah, I think safest is always taking your time. Don't rush. If you rush, you tend to make mistakes. If you don't evaluate the situation properly, you tend to make mistakes. Use quality gear. This is a safety situation, by the way. Recovering anybody goes into that safety, and I know we've talked about that before too. But like when you get into the safety realm of things, you just don't skimp. Use what you have, use what you can afford. I get all that, but if you're going to be out there really recovering people and doing things, you need the safest equipment. So buy good equipment, take your time. There's no rush. Don't do anything too hastily. And then I think when you're actually doing the recoveries, constantly be monitoring the environment around you, not just the recovery. So yeah, I'm pulling you this way, right? But Sean is standing over there in a damage zone, right? If something were to break loose or something like that. So you got to be paying attention to kind of
surroundings and everything. Yeah.
Anything else, Sean?
No. I think that covers it. I mean, it depends on where you're tied off to and how if you're tied to an angle on a tree, it can add a whole nother dimension. So yeah, safety is the first thing. Just make sure you're safe.
So would you recommend if you were out, say, with the pairing of two trucks, one of them stuck, would you rather tie off to a truck or a tree if you had a winch? What would be better? I guess every scenario is probably different, but most guys are probably like, let's pull this out with the truck, right? You're not going to just tie off to a tree.
So you're using the truck with their winch? Is that the scenario?
Yeah.
I think I'd rather be on a tree, wouldn't you?
Well, you have two trucks. There's winches if you had it. You can tie to a tree to pull yourself out with your own, or you can grab your buddy and say, hey, let's see how much your truck has, and let's pull this thing out. Right?
I'll let him answer first.
I think I'd go to a tree, but I think you're going to say something different.
The environment is an important aspect of every recovery.
Okay.
We practice this mantra at Off-RoadX, which is put out by the Bureau of Land Management, the U.S. Forest Service, Department of Interior, National Park Service, which is leave no trace and tread lightly. And so if we have the opportunity to not hook up to a tree, I'm going to do that. So I would go to the truck first and see if the other vehicle has enough anchor weight so that we don't have to hook up to a tree. If we do have to attach to a tree, there's a thing actually called a tree saver. And we carry tree savers with us on all of our rigs. And it's a special rope that has like a braided sheath on it that is softer than what a normal, just rope around a tree would be. And so it kind of helps protect the tree trunk and the bark and things like that, the environment around it. So short answer is I'd go to the truck first, and then I would go to the tree if I had to, and I would always use a tree saver so that I'm not like damaging the tree.
Look at you looking out for the environment. Yeah. So, all right, last one I got for you. This hit me. So if you're pulling out with a truck, are you pulling out from the front end? Are you tying it to your tow hooks and backing out as the truck pulling, or are you hooking it to your hitch or something like that and pulling?
It all depends on the situation here. So if we're doing like, say there's a truck stuck and we have the winch and the winch is on the front of our vehicle, I'm going to pull up.
You're going to use the nose.
Yeah,
right?
I'm going to pull up that way. If we're on a trail where, it's like a 1-lane trail and I can't back up to like turn around or whatever the scenario is, and this happens, we've had this happen before, then I'm going to go to my kinetic rope and try to do it with my kinetic rope. And if that's not going to work, we're going to get a little mathy and complicated. We're going to go forward off of a tree with a snatch block and come back to the truck behind us. So the rope's actually going to come off the front of our truck, go the wrong direction, off of a snatch block, which is like a pulley. And then it's going to come all the way back to that truck. And that's kind of like the best case scenario that we can have. And in that environment too, say your truck is in front of that other truck that's stuck and you're pulling, and let's say you don't have enough weight. Your truck isn't getting pulled into his truck then. It's actually getting pulled away from his truck. So you've kind of got this same direction thing going that can be a little safer than the other way.
Yeah. Yeah. So you brought up snatch blocks. We were doing that recovery at the church, and we used a snatch block because we were pulling it straight, and it was kind of swirling around. And luckily, there was some yellow iron there in the parking lot, and we tied off onto this backhoe with a snatch block and pulled it at an angle, and it came to the perfect place where we needed it. So snatch blocks are amazing.
Yeah, snatch blocks just give you so much more variability in what you can do for recovery. And we carried 2 snatch blocks. That's not really necessary. Most people never need a snatch block. We've never used both of them simultaneously, but we've used one quite a bit. We've gone off of a tree or gone off of another vehicle to recover somebody.
Sounds like it's a very universal kind of tool to help different situations.
And there's all kinds of different snatch blocks too. So we actually have 2 different types of snatch blocks. One's kind of just a ring, and then the other one's more like a standard pulley. So, and each one has its benefits to it as well.
Gotcha. Well, cool. That kind of summarizes the fan question. So basically, to summarize that, kinetic rope on your vehicle if you're going out. If you can't afford a winch, if you can't do that, don't go out. I don't know. Tie to it. No, I mean, always go out. We talked about this last time. Most situations you can probably get out in 2-wheel drive. That's, more of to me, it's more of like a high center. Like you said, it kind of sucks you down. And just be safe when you're practicing these, recovery processes. So.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is like be aware of your environment on your own. Worst case scenario, call Off-RoadX. We'll come recover you anywhere in Colorado.
Yes.
There's the plug.
We love to do that.
And I'll give just one for instance. We ran into a guy, this is probably 2-3 years ago now, and he was way up in, I can't even remember where. He was like 7 miles deep into this trail. There was no one coming.
Yeah.
And he was in a Chevy 2500 series, and they had the wrong tires.
My kind of friends.
I don't know, 1,000 pounds of weight in the truck and the bed and stuff. Like I was out there with his girlfriend. It was one of these scenarios where the trail was super tight, huge mud holes, just mud hole after mud hole. And we're talking like 2-3 feet mud holes and things. And that 2 or 3 mud holes, they went on for I think it was 17 miles. And so he was 7 miles in, but it was better for us to just keep going the same direction than to turn him around. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we did. And we used a kinetic rope the whole time. And we hooked it up to the Raptor. We always joke with people, we'll get you off the trail no matter what. And I was always worried, if there was a big heavy rig and the Raptor seeing what it could do, it didn't even know it was back there. It just dragged it the whole distance, didn't care. It was awesome. But that guy kind of put himself in a situation where shouldn't have been in with his vehicle on a trail that he shouldn't have been on. So
I wasn't on that one. How did you find out that guy was stranded?
Well, we were off-roading nearby.
Oh, okay.
And they found, somebody said, hey, there's somebody back there.
Okay.
Help them out.
I thought maybe you got a phone call. I was like, how'd you get a phone call?
We happened to be nearby at the time.
Gotcha.
We were on a trip where we were going even further west. It was great, though. It was a good time.
Well, thanks for helping someone out in the woods, Right on. So, Sean, kind of just to give you a heads up, what we're about to do to wrap up our this episode here, we do some rapid fire questions. I'm going to shoot some to him, shoot some to you. Okay. Just whatever comes to you, answer it that way. Okay. So, I'm going to actually do the first one to you. Winch or toe strap?
Toe strap.
Toe strap.
Why?
You got to have it as a minimum. I know the winch is probably the right answer, but not everybody can afford the winch. You can throw a toe strap in anything. Carry it around all the time.
I agree with that one.
Yeah.
I agree because I don't have a winch, so. All right, Pete. Digging out or calling for help?
Digging out first. You dig out. You try first. I mean, look, we charge when we go out. It takes time and money for us to go do this. There are recovery services in Colorado which are nonprofit and don't charge. They ask for donations and tips and things like that. So, you save your money. See if you can dig out first. Get a little money yourself. And if you want to hear a crazy story about digging out, there was one time where we were doing a trip and we came up on this mud hole. It was 5 o'clock. Okay, so we had been off-roading all day. Our campsite was in sight, but we came up and there was this massive mud hole, just absolutely 4 or 5 foot deep mud hole. And there's a Jeep Cherokee in the mud hole, or it was just outside the mud hole by the time we got there. So what's the story here?
People get stuck
How long have these guys been stuck?
since 11 a.m.
What time is it now?
5:06.
So for 6 hours, they've been digging themselves out.
Played Austin Powers.
We come walking up on this group of people, and they are covered in mud to their, to here. They are buried, right? And they look exhausted, like just like they had been just getting beat up all day. And so when we pulled up, they were like, "Hey, can you just give us a few minutes? We just got this thing unstuck." And I just was like, how long were you stuck for? And then the guy turned to his buddy. Keep in mind, it's 5 p.m. He's like, "When did we come here?" I think it was like 9:30.
Whoa. Wow.
So they had been digging out from 9:30 to 5. And unfortunately, we got there, a little late for
right
them.
on time.
Yeah, exactly right on time.
That situation, they probably should call for help after, I would say, an hour.
Well, everybody's different. They've got a great story to tell. And hopefully they tell everybody about it. Or maybe they make better decisions next time, or different decisions. I should say better, because off-roading's fun. Getting stuck sometimes is fun. So maybe they'll just make different decisions next time, and they won't be in that scenario as long as they were. But yeah, so dig out first. Try your best. If you get overwhelmed or if it's just too much, definitely call for help. Also, weather. Pay attention to the weather.
Yeah.
If it's gonna get bad, call. Get people started on their way. Even if you're digging out simultaneously, get people coming, so that if you're gonna get caught in a snowstorm or a thunderstorm or some
Safety first, right?
Yes.
Yeah, good point. I'll add to that. I like wheeling with people, more than one vehicle. So if I'm out there by myself, I'm not doing what I should. So me personally, I like the safety in numbers, right? Yeah. So,
and that scenario that I gave you, that guy had 5 other people with him. They broke a bunch of winches and stuff like that trying to get them out. At least that's what they told me. I don't know, but and they had, if I remember correctly, one name brand winch, and then they had a brand that I would not recommend, which I won't mention. I'm sure at one of these podcasts I'm going to mention this.
Oh, yeah. I'll get it out here for sure.
And I was not surprised that winch broke.
If we're not getting lawsuits, then we're not doing a good enough job. Just kidding. All right. Sean, this one's for you.
Okay.
Snatch block, must have or niche?
To me, it's not a must-have, but for Off-RoadX it is. But for the normal off-roader, I don't think they have to have it. There's usually a way you can figure out to tie off somewhere else if you need to. So to me, it's not a must-have, but...
Okay. That's when you call for help.
Yeah,
I would.
So someone's got a snatch block somewhere.
Off-RoadX does.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to go right back to you.
Okay.
I'm going to end it with him. The most overhyped recovery gear. You can kind of lead and add some feedback to that.
Most overhyped. Oh,
is it a snatch
the
block?
boards?
The
boards.
Boards.
What are those called?
Traction boards.
Thank you. I was stumbling, but traction boards, I don't think are worth what you're paying for them.
So what is this?
So they're pieces of plastic.
Yep.
I'll let you go. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Fill in. It's just supposed to help you get traction if you're stuck. So
Yeah.
go ahead and add to it.
We've been there's some mantras, if you follow Matt's Off-Road Recovery or somebody like that, he says if you can use a traction board to get unstuck, then you weren't really stuck.
So they ain't worth nothing.
Yeah, there are some unique scenarios where they can come in handy, but what they are is pieces of plastic with all kinds of teeth and tread on them, and you can use them to go over a little V-notch. You can use them to dig, so they soft soil. You can dig out with them. So kind of like a little shovel, and then in mud situations and things like that, you can kind of put them underneath the tire. Hopefully you get a little bit of traction. You're able to move forward a little bit, then you pull them out, do it again and again, kind of like that railroad kind of thing. You put the next thing down. I completely agree. The good ones are really expensive. We're talking $400 or $500 sometimes. And the cheap ones people say aren't worth it. So you got to spend to get the nice ones. And now you're $400 or $500.
So
you're kind of on your way to a winch and definitely a rope.
Get a rope.
Yeah. Get a rope.
Get a rope. That sounded exhausting just now. You're trying to explain how bad it was.
They look really cool on a truck with a rack on it. They look sweet, but they don't do much for you.
Aesthetics, though.
Yeah.
You
We're all about that.
Yeah, exactly. You want to look cool, dude. I ain't trying to mess up my rig. So, all right, we're going to end it with this one. Biggest off-road fail moment. What do you got?
For me?
Yeah, either one of you, yeah. What do you guys remember?
I got one, but you want to go?
All right. We went to Moab this past year, and we did top of the world. We were out there with 2 Broncos that were on 37s and my Raptor, which was on 35s, and my Raptor was carrying all the gear. So my Raptor had 1,000 pounds of weight in the bed and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Top of the world trail has gotten harder over the years. It used to be something that, like, with a 35s, you go right up it. And you could still do it like in a Jeep in 35s and things like that. You could still do it probably pretty easily. But 37s are kind of like starting to
almost be a must-have in that situation.
Kind of. And my wheelbase doesn't help with the Raptor. My width doesn't help with the Raptor. So you've got all that working against me. And tore up the CV axles. Came down hard on a rock and smashed my transmission oil pan through the skid plate. So that was a pretty bad deal. Now, in the grand scheme of things, we were able to drive the truck right off the trail. We drove it into town. I fixed it in a parking lot. So it all turned out just fine. But I would say that was one of my biggest fail moments. I'm going to say one more real quick. This one truly is dangerous. So we were on a trip, and we were coming down into Glenwood Springs. And it started raining like 2-3 miles before Glenwood Springs. And I told the people that were with us, I was like, any way you can speed up. Like, we need to get to this. There's a switchback trail that goes down in Glenwood Springs. And I knew it was going to be soupy if we didn't get there quickly. We tried to get there quickly. It was kind of too late. I go down the first switchback, and I'm going like a mile an hour. And by the time I'm at the bottom, I'm going 6 miles an hour up this first switchback. And I was hitting the brakes the whole way. So it sped up because the mud,
the ground's moving.
The mud was just like ice.
Yeah.
And the truck almost went off the edge and everything, and I had people with me that were following me, and so there was a long conversation with them. It was like, I don't know if I could even get back up. So it was like camping on the switchback was the option, right? And so we made the option to progress, but very carefully and very slowly, and it took us, I think, 2-3 hours to go a mile.
Oh.
And we just did it very slowly and as safely as we possibly could with everybody's nerves going crazy because both of the rigs were heavy. Both of them were F-150 Raptors, and they were just sliding all over the place. The tires were just this thick, full of mud. It was
no traction.
It was hairy. It was hairy. So I would call that a failure. I should have made an executive decision when it started raining to not take that trail. I should have just said, we're going to get in super late and go back and go another way.
Yeah. Mine was with you. We were in Moab. We had a guy's shock blow out. It's midnight. We're working with headlights, trying to get a shock off of this vehicle so we can get it off the mountain because it wouldn't even roll. We drove about 2 miles an hour down, and it wasn't technical. It was just he didn't have any shocks in the rear now. And he's driving on bump stops on this Jeep, his brand new Bronco Raptor. We got down 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah, something like that.
All night long. I was nodding off, dozing off, trying to stay awake. He'd hit the gas, I'd wake up. We finally got down to a Walmart parking lot, parked, slept for an hour, went to the Ford dealership. He got stuck there for a week, so it sucked. We went on four-wheeling while he was stuck there. Yeah. It was Groundhog Day for him, so... He finally got shocks delivered and fixed his car and drove back to Texas, but that sucked.
Hey, heck yeah. So anytime I'm on a trip with you guys, I'm going to bring some extra pants because that sounds scary. Absolutely. So. But that wraps up this episode, guys. All right, guys, if you've ever had a crazy recovery situation, tell us in the comments. Hit the like button if you've ever been stuck. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, all the social media sites. Give Off-RoadX a call if you ever get stuck out there. We're here to help. And the Rally Club, that's big out here, okay?
Rally Club's absolutely huge. In fact, I'll pass it over to Sean. Sean knows a lot about the Rally Club. He's been on a couple trips for the Rally Club. It's completely free, but Sean, why don't you kind of give a little overview?
Yeah, it is completely free, and there's always a group of people going out. Peter does a lot of lessons on anything you guys want to learn about. We went out one time to Rampart, and we did a lot of winch training and some beginner four-wheel training. So all skill levels, everybody's invited. It's a great time. Everybody always has fun. So
absolutely. So sign up for the Rally Club on Facebook for free. You can also sign up to it on our website and pay a fee to sign up for it, and that fee will give you discounts on parts as well as labor for your rig. So if you're going to do a dream build, you can sign up for the Rally Club and pay a fee. By the way, that fee basically covers your initial gift. So if you pay the $50 to sign up for it, you're getting a t-shirt, you're getting sticker packs, you're getting discounts for your labor, you're getting discounts on parts, and it lasts for a full year. So $50 and you get all this swag, plus you get all these discounts. So you can pay to join the Rally Club, or you can do it completely free. Doesn't matter. But the Rally Club events are fantastic, and you only hear about them if you're a Rally Club member and you join the Facebook group.
Right on. Once again, this is brought to you by Off-RoadX, and that's a wrap for QXA.